I grew up in a family with a sibling who had undiagnosed, untreated ADHD.
And what made you decide to help families?
Well, I've been a family therapist for a long time, Lydie. When I went to graduate school, it was just the area of psychology that really spoke to me. And I think that's partially because it's very dynamic. There are a lot of personalities in the room. It's very interesting and exciting. And I also think that it comes from my own history of wanting to heal some of the wounds from my childhood and a lot of the shall I say, challenging patterns. I grew up in a family with a sibling who had undiagnosed, untreated ADHD. There was both my parents are very intense people with a lot of passion, and that sometimes translated into conflict and anger. So I wanted to help families communicate better and cooperate more.
Yes. How can parents, so based on your own experience and also based on your academic experience, how can parents guide their children to develop their social and communication skills?
Well, I think that's a question that's so complicated and has many, many layers. The things that we want to do with our kids is we want to treat our kids with compassion and respect, and manage ourselves first when there's conflict, so that we are able to act from a place of calm and neutrality rather than react with big feelings and anger. And that will model for our kids how to respond to other people and how to share their own big feelings. We want to help kids socialize starting from an early age. We want to take kids and expose them to other people, different situations, and then we want to facilitate how they hang out with their friends, how they hang out with their siblings, to model some of that and offer them opportunities where they can express themselves both creatively, athletically, musically, so that in the experience of doing these activities, they will be able to interact positively with other children and develop relationships.
I have a follow-up question based on what you just said. You said that parents need to foster and to model what the children needs to do. Mm-hmm. How concretely, how can it be? For example, is the parents are going to say, okay, today let's pretend that we are in that situation, or how can parents model?
Well, I think that, in my book, What Your ADHD Child Wishes You Knew, I talk about and what your ADHD child wishes you knew, empowering kids for success in school and life. What I talk about are the 5 C's of successful ADHD parenting, and they're really just 5. They're applied to all parents. They're very concrete steps. And the first C is self-control. You are going to manage yourself first before you try to manage your child. It's kind of like when you go on an airplane and the flight attendant says you're going to put your oxygen mask on yourself first and then on your child. If you're dysregulated, if you're out of control, you're not going to be interacting with your child from a place that's your best self. And while we can't always be our best selves 24/7, that's impossible. What we want to do is set up a situation where we can notice when we're becoming dysregulated, excuse ourselves, go to the bathroom, wash our face, call for a time apart in the family so people can settle down, and then move forward. The second C, of course, is compassion. We're going to meet kids where they are. The third C is collaboration. We're going to work with our kids to get their buy-in for solutions to challenging problems rather than imposing our solutions on them, because a lot of times that doesn't work and they push back. When kids feel like they have a say, even a small say in a solution, it helps them participate better. We're going to be consistent, which isn't about being perfect, it's about being steady. And finally, we're going to celebrate the successes. acknowledge and validate our kids when they do what we ask, when they're making real efforts to change, rather than only focusing just on the goal.
That's good. So that shows that it's little works. It's a daily activity that parents need to do, and communication that parents need to do, to have with their children. It's something daily.
Absolutely. We can only change one thing at a time, but in order for us to make progress with our families, it is a day-to-day practice. It's a day-to-day process. So maybe you decide this month we're going to work on self-control for all of us and try to make a little headway with that. Or you could just work on that for yourself and then, talk with your child about something they'd like to see different in their lives, that they'd like to change about themselves, and then help them focus on that.
And how parents can be effective with siblings who have different needs. Based on that, I need to regulate myself, but then I have children with different personalities that I need also to take care of. And sometimes I can have children with a special need. So when we have that complexity in the family, how can parents can be more effective?
Well, all children are different, right? And so I think that whether you have a child who's neurotypical or a child who's neurodiverse, every child is wired uniquely. Yes. And so as parents, we have to meet our kids where they are. We have to honor who they are. And it's very common in a family that one child needs one thing and one child needs something else. And so if you focus on the content of what each child needs, you might be pulling your hair out. Instead, you want to focus on the process. So your 8-year-old cannot do the same types of chores as your 12-year-old, but that doesn't mean you're going to give up chores. Instead, what you're going to do is say, for example, here's the chore chart, and here are your chores, 8-year-old, here are your chores, 12-year-old, and the process is when you finish the chore, you take off the Post-it and you move it to the other side of the ledger, right? And so that, the 8-year-old has actions that are appropriate for the 8-year-old, and the 12-year-old has tasks that are appropriate for them as well. And so I think that's what we need to think about. Like, we have homework time, we have family work time where we're all at the table, doing some of our projects, and I can be there to answer your homework questions, and you can each be working on what you need to do. Or we have free time at the same time. So people will do different things, but it's a sort of more of a general routine. And then you're available to each child in different ways. And I also think it's really important in families for parents to make time, private time with each of their children. If you can, if you have the means, if you have relatives, try to spend time once a month, at least, with each of your children. Even if it's just going to get some food or going to the grocery store or taking a walk, that alone time is very important. And certainly before bed, you say you spend a little time with each of them. Kids need that.
Definitely. And that one-on-one time, it's really important. The time, with both parents, it's important, and it helps also to develop social and communication skills. Definitely. I notice it personally with my children. As soon as I have personal time with my 2-year-old, he's quieter, because he's with me, and it's only, him and me. And something with my 4-year-old, the activities will be different, because
of course
it's more, he has more energy. So I will have to play, longer and faster than for my 4-year-old. But 4-year-old, because now in preschool, so I do more about reading and writing the names, starting doing, some phonics and everything around that. So definitely.
That's right, because your kids actually need that private time with you. They need that for all kinds of reasons, most of which have to do with attachment and emotional attunement. And And so we want to nurture that connection, because out of that connection to you, they feel safe, they feel secure in the world, and in themselves. They feel worthy of being loved. And you can't make everything safe and secure in the world, but knowing that you're there, knowing that they're connected to you, that is very grounding, and that develops a positive sense of self for kids.
Definitely.
So it's important to think about when you're giving your kids screen, and make sure that it serves you, not just them. And small things work. When you take your kids out for a walk, walk for yourself too. When you go to the playground, do some stretching, whatever, take those moments when you can find them. Right. Well, we all pay different attention to different children based on their needs. And so we don't want to shortchange one child for another. And yet we know that children who have special needs may require additional attention and may take some of your time that otherwise you could give to your other children. And I think that's why it's important to have some time for that child in particular, where it's just the two of you, and where the child with special needs is being watched or taken care of by someone else. It's very important, because there's been some work done, some research and some books about the siblings of kids of special needs. And often these kids feel like they're the other one.
Yes.
Right? That they're not being tended to, that the other child is taking up so much parenting time. And what will they do in response? They will act out to get your attention, even if it's negative. That's right. And that's part of the issue, that if your child is acting out, and there's, if one child is doing something and the other child's acting out, maybe they're upset, obviously, about something. But if you're paying a lot of attention to one child and then the other child starts having a meltdown, that's a signal like, I'm feeling left out. I have a need. That need is, I want you to pay attention to me. So I'm going to do whatever I can to get you to pay attention. And in those moments, I think it's really important for parents to say, I know I'm spending time with, your sister, and you and I are going to have our private time at this point. So look at the clock, and when the numbers look like this, we will be at our private time.